welcome to another edition of Rock's Garage. I'm your host, Kevin. On this episode, we're going to show you how to install a turn signal, part number LGT-132A, along with your plastic steering column cover, part number LGT-107A, on this 2011 Club Car DS. Now before we get started, we want to show you what's included with your turn signal, as well as all the necessary tools to perform the installation. Now here are the items included with your turn signal. You'll receive the turn signal assembly with wire harness, the electronic flasher, as well as all necessary mounting hardware. Now another thing to consider is the steering column cover. Now if you're purchasing a build your own light kit, you will receive this column cover as part of the package. However, if you just purchase a turn signal individually, you will want to purchase this separately. This is going to be the LGT-107A. Now that we've shown you what's included with your turn signal, let's take a look at the tools necessary to perform the installation. Now here are the tools that we will be using throughout our installation. First we have a ratchet, half-inch socket, a utility knife, Phillips head screwdriver, and a trim removal tool. Now that we've discussed the tools that we will be using, we're ready to begin our installation. Since the purpose of this video is to simply demonstrate how to install a turn signal, we've previously ran the Deluxe wire harness and secured it firmly behind our dash panel. Now before we get started on this installation, we need to make sure that we place our tow run switch in the tow position, as well as disconnect the battery pack before we remove the dash panel, since the key switch has a tendency to rub against the metal framing around the dash panel, which will cause it to short out. Now if you were going to be installing your light kit from start to finish, this is a safety precaution that you would want to take as step number one. That being that you place your tow run switch in the tow position on an electric cart and that your batteries are disconnected. Now the next thing we're going to do is to remove our dash panel by removing the two plastic caps on each end of the dash panel. Once these caps have been removed, it'll expose two Phillips screws that will also need to be removed. Once we have those out of the way, we can then remove our dash panel, but we want to be sure that we retain the hardware, as it will be reinstalled later on in the process. Now in order to properly install your turn signal, you want to place your turn signal on the steering column, finding a location that is both easy to reach as well as won't interfere with your day-to-day use of your cart. Now once you've found that location, you want to select from one of the three rubber gaskets that are included with your kit, placing it on the other side of the mounting bracket, and then you'll secure this bracket to your turn signal using the hardware provided. With our turn signal now mounted to the steering column, the next thing we want to do is to route our wires down along the steering column. Now before we do that, we want to make sure that we plug in the included electronic flasher into the connector that's on the wiring harness from our turn signal. The next thing we want to do is to take our 9-pin connector from our turn signal and route that down, locating the 9-pin connector from our Deluxe wire harness, and connect these two together. There's also going to be a bullet connector on your turn signal harness as well as on your Deluxe harness. This is going to be for your high-low beam option, and you can connect these two together in order to use the high-low beam feature of your headlights if you desire. Now since we don't want to reinstall our battery connections until after we've installed our dash panel because of the key switch making contact with the metal dash frame, we won't be able to test our turn signal until after we've covered up our connectors. So once you place the dash panel back on, don't install the hardware until we've actually tested the functionality of our turn signal. After you have your turn signal securely installed around your steering column, if you notice that your steering column cover causes your turn signal to rotate around the steering column, what you'll want to do is to remove your steering wheel as well as the steering column cover and take a piece of electrical tape and wrap it around the actual steering column, and this will wedge the steering column cover in place, keeping it from rotating around and keeping your turn signal in its current position. Now for our installation, this was not a step that we needed to take. However, we did want to advise ahead of time in case this was a problem that you ran into. Now our next step is to test fit and trim our plastic column cover where necessary. Now what we want to do is we want to take the column cover, have the higher of the raised edge towards the turn signal, set it up against our steering column, figure out where we need to trim at the bottom, and then take a utility knife or some cutters and cut away the excess material, and then test fit again. Now you can repeat this process until you have the right length for your steering column cover. Once you have your column cover trimmed to the proper length, you want to install it by pressing the large end around the steering column. Now you want to be sure that the wire from your turn signal is inside the smaller channel so that it doesn't get pinched in between the column cover and the steering column itself. Once you have your accessories installed, you want to go back and reconnect your batteries so that you can test the functionality of all of your accessories. Once you're satisfied that everything's functioning properly, be sure to reinstall the hardware that secures your dash panel in place. Once you've verified that everything functions properly, that'll complete the installation of our turn signal, part number LGT-132A, along with our plastic column cover, part number LGT-107A, on our 2011 Club Car DS. Now feel free to check out our videos for instruction on how to install the voltage reducer, Deluxe harness, and other accessories. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.